So it's been a great experience for me personally.
So you pointed to one of the key, I think, issues in the book of practitioners and academics, theoreticians, as you said. You obviously are a practitioner of the first order. Dean, you're an academic. So talk about that side of it, because we study these things, we read about them in foreign affairs and other places, we read about them, and it also is a lot of law, international law, there are institutions, there are power issues, but there's also some people involved.
Yeah, exactly. And this, so I have to say, this has been such a great honor for me and an incredible experience. So I obviously, I'm a scholar of international security, a psychologist, spent a lot of time in presidential archives reading the transcript of the meetings. And then, you know, in the scholarly community, we have theories, the kind of questions that we ask about what is the pattern of behavior that we see across time, across space. So as we study foreign policy decision-making, so sometimes we look at particular cases. Sometimes we look at, you know, can we see trends over time or patterns? Then you bring it with the practitioners that bring the experience and expertise from being in the room. And in many cases, and what I found to be in the conversation with Hillary is that many times we're focusing on similar questions, but we have very different language or the way that we think about or talk about it, if you're a scholar versus if you're a practitioner. But many times there's a big disconnect between the scholarly community and the policymakers about what are the right set of questions, how do we need to think about it. And so the gaps are very important to explore, and this is what we were doing. We wrote the book because there was no collection of essays of the current state of what we know, what we think we know, what we don't know, that brings both the scholars and the academics. And in particular, if you look at the literature and the scholarship on the role of psychology and how much that explains foreign policy decision-making, how much the psychology of the individuals in the room drives those decisions, and why it is that we keep getting surprised by the behavior of our adversaries. And we keep getting it wrong. It's the policymakers, sometimes it's the intelligence community. So what is the source of that? And if we want to really understand that, the answer is not, is not in rational choice and hyper-rationalist expectations. That actually what fails us again and again. But it's in our inability to really either empathize, to put ourselves in the shoes of the others, or understand our own biases, beliefs, and misperceptions. And there is a really interesting body and growing body of literature, starting with my own mentor, Robert Jervis, but the work of Kahneman and Tversky on heuristics and judgment that we bring into the analysis. And we show to the students, both in theory, why it matters and how it works, but also how it explains real cases. And this was one of the things that I loved talking to Hillary about, because when we talked about prospect theory for the first time, she went like, oh, wow, that explains so much of how I think about Putin's behavior, or now with Benjamin Netanyahu, and so on. So there's just a lot that, similarly, I think we gain by bringing those insights and focus on the human elements, the patterns and the biases that get us surprised at the end.
Give a quick explanation of prospect theory, because I want everybody to go, aha!
Well, this is one of the insights that came from the work of Kahneman and Tversky, and the idea is about loss aversion and biases, that when you are in a domain of loss, you are much more likely to run risks to recover losses than compared to when you are trying to when you're in a domain of gains. And that explains a lot of why we all of a sudden see change in the pattern of behavior, leaders willing to run more risks to recover losses compared to situation of gains. And we're talking about this in the context of, if you want to understand the Ukraine, the decision to invade Ukraine, what's driving this, you have to really understand Putin's psychology and the reference point, and how it's all about, in his mind, regaining the Soviet empire. You want to understand Benjamin Netanyahu's willingness to run risks after October 7, as opposed to being very risk averse before. That also explains a lot of it. So that's where I think we're the gist of it, I would say.
So, Ambassador Sullivan, it strikes me when we talk about practitioner, you're a practitioner twice.